On May 3, 2007, 3-year-old Madeleine McCann vanished from a vacation apartment at the Ocean Club in Praia da Luz, Portugal during a family trip. Her parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, left Madeleine and her twin siblings asleep in an unlocked ground floor apartment while dining at a tapas restaurant 55 meters away. At 10 p.m., Kate found Madeleine gone, the window open, and the shutter disturbed. Portuguese police launched a kidnapping investigation, sparking global attention. The case remains unsolved after 18 years, with Christian Brueckner as the prime suspect. Can new evidence convict the perpetrator? From June 3 to 5, 2025, a large-scale search operation took place in Atalaia, approximately 30 miles from Praia da Luz, Portugal, near a rundown cottage once occupied by Christian Brueckner, the prime suspect in the 2007 disappearance of Madeleine McCann. The effort involved German police leading the operation, alongside Portugal's Guarda Nacional Republicana and investigators from the UK's Operation Grange. The search employed advanced ground-penetrating radars GPR capable of scanning up to 15 feet deep to detect buried objects or anomalies. The focus was on abandoned houses, drained wells, and ditches in the area, which was significant due to Brueckner's known presence in the Algarve from 1995 to 2007. Portuguese firefighters assisted by draining wells to allow thorough inspections, while heavy machinery like backhoes was used to excavate potential sites. The operation utilized 3D mapping and geolocation data to pinpoint locations tied to Brueckner's activities, particularly around the time of Madeleine's disappearance. This coordinated effort among 3 countries aimed to uncover physical evidence before Brueckner's scheduled release from prison on September 17, 2025, after serving a 7-year sentence for a 2005 rape in Praia da Luz. The timing was critical, as investigators faced mounting pressure to secure evidence to prevent Brueckner from potentially fleeing to a non-extradition country, which could derail the case. During the 3-day search, authorities recovered several items, including 2 firearms, a 6.35 mm pistol, likely an air gun or small self-defense weapon, and another gun over 50 years old, possibly non-functional. They also found animal bones, clothing fragments, and scraps of fabric. These items were carefully collected and sent to a forensic laboratory in Lisbon for detailed analysis, with investigators hoping to identify DNA, fibers, or other traces that could link to Madeleine McCann. According to Portugal's Correio da Manhã, the firearms were unlikely to be lethal, dampening hopes that they could serve as key evidence in the case. The prolonged exposure of these items to environmental factors, rain, wind, and natural decay over 18 years, poses a significant challenge, as such conditions can degrade DNA or other forensic markers. While advancements in forensic science offer some hope, the absence of immediate connections to Madeleine has left investigators cautious. As of June 2025, no lab results have been publicly disclosed, and the item's relevance remains uncertain. The discovery of animal bones, rather than human remains, further complicates the narrative, as does the possibility that the clothing could belong to unrelated activities in the remote Atalaia area, known for its abandoned structures and sparse population. The primary objective of the Atalaia search was to find concrete physical or forensic evidence linking Christian Brueckner to Madeleine McCann's disappearance, strengthening the case against him before his imminent release. Brueckner, a convicted rapist and pedophile, has been the main suspect since 2020, supported by phone records placing him near the Ocean Club on the night of May 3, 2007, and witness statements, such as Helge Busching's claim that Brueckner said Madeleine didn't scream. The search was a critical effort to uncover items like DNA, clothing, or other materials that could definitively tie him to the crime. The urgency was heightened by a controversial incident in June 2025, when a former German Federal Criminal Police employee paid a €1446 fine on Brueckner's behalf, securing his early release and shortening the investigation timeline by over 3 months. This sparked outrage, as it reduced the window to gather evidence. The McCann family, alongside public petitions and rallies, has pressed authorities to act swiftly, fearing Brueckner could evade justice if freed. The search also aimed to address long-standing public and media pressure to resolve one of Europe's most high-profile missing child cases, with the hope that a breakthrough could prevent the case from going cold again after nearly 2 decades of investigation. In 2016, German police conducted a significant search of an abandoned factory near Braunschweig, Germany. Rented by Christian Brueckner under a false name, Brueckner, the prime suspect in the 2007 disappearance of Madeleine McCann, had been living a transient lifestyle across Europe, particularly in Portugal's Algarve region from 1995 to 2007. The factory, hidden behind fences and difficult to access, was investigated as part of a broader probe into Brueckner's activities related to child abuse material, not initially tied to the McCann case. The search uncovered a disturbing cache of evidence buried under the remains of a dead dog, believed to be Brueckner's pet. The most alarming find was a collection of hard drives and USB devices containing approximately 8,000 images and videos of child sexual abuse. Some of these materials were homemade, with evidence suggesting Brueckner himself filmed certain content. The deliberate burial of these devices under the dog's body indicated a calculated effort to conceal his crimes, reflecting a meticulous and controlling personality. Additionally, investigators found 75 children's swimsuits, toys, and a child's bicycle, raising suspicions about Brueckner's activities. Among the documents was a handwritten story titled Madeleine, describing the kidnapping and murder of a young girl with eerie similarities to Madeleine McCann, including details about a child being taken from a vacation setting. This discovery heightened suspicions about Brueckner's potential involvement in Madeleine's case, though it was not initially the focus of the search. The factory's remote location and Brueckner's use of aliases made it challenging to trace his ownership, requiring police to cross-reference car records and rental agreements to confirm his connection. The search revealed Brueckner's pattern of targeting areas near family-friendly resorts, suggesting he deliberately chose locations to observe or prey on children. Beyond the digital evidence, the 2016 search uncovered a range of items that painted a chilling picture of Brueckner's organized criminal behavior. Police found ropes, zip ties, duct tape, and rubber masks, tools commonly associated with restraining victims. They also discovered stun guns and chemical substances, potentially sedatives or chloroform, indicating premeditated actions rather than impulsive crimes. These items were meticulously stored, some wrapped as if kept as trophies, suggesting a methodical approach to his activities. The presence of children's clothing, including swimsuits and small underwear, was particularly disturbing, as none could be linked to known victims, raising fears about unidentified crimes. The materials pointed to a predator who planned his actions carefully, selecting tools and chemicals that could subdue or control victims. The discovery of such items in a hidden, abandoned factory underscored Brueckner's efforts to evade detection, using isolated locations and false identities to cover his tracks. The Madeleine story, while not direct evidence, matched Brueckner's psychological profile as someone capable of violent fantasies and actions, further fueling suspicions about his involvement in Madeleine's disappearance. The organization of the evidence, from carefully buried drives to preserved clothing, suggested a long-term commitment to his crimes, with the factory serving as a hub for storing illicit materials. However, the lack of immediate connection to Madeleine McCann meant that these findings, while incriminating, were initially pursued in the context of other charges against Brueckner, such as possession of child abuse material. Despite the shocking nature of the findings, significant limitations hindered their direct application to the Madeleine McCann case. No DNA evidence or specific items, such as clothing or objects belonging to Madeleine, were found among the factory's contents. The absence of forensic links, such as hair, blood, or fibers matching Madeleine, meant investigators could not conclusively tie Brueckner to her disappearance. Many of the digital devices were tampered with, files had been deleted, and some drives were password protected, complicating efforts to recover data. forensic experts face challenges accessing the full scope of the content, as Brueckner's technical savvy allowed him to obscure evidence. The passage of nearly a decade since Madeleine's disappearance in 2007 further diminished the likelihood of finding intact DNA or other perishable evidence. The children's items, while suspicious, could not be traced to specific victims, and the lack of a comprehensive database linking missing children to the materials left gaps in the investigation. The Madeleine story, though chillingly similar to Madeleine's case, was circumstantial and lacked legal weight to serve as direct evidence. Additionally, the search was conducted as part of a separate investigation into Brueckner's child abuse activities, not specifically for Madeleine's case, which meant resources and focus were not fully directed toward connecting the findings to her disappearance. Coordination issues between German, Portuguese, and British authorities further complicated matters, as evidence was not systematically shared or cross-referenced with Europol records. The failure to test items like the clothing or the factory's concrete floor for DNA at the time was later criticized as a missed opportunity. These limitations underscored the challenge of building a case against Brueckner for Madeleine's disappearance, despite the overwhelming evidence of his predatory behavior. In 2024, German police achieved a significant breakthrough by accessing a Hotmail account belonging to Christian Brueckner, the prime suspect in the 2007 disappearance of Madeleine McCann. The account contained messages that investigators believe are related to Madeleine's suspected murder, marking a critical development in the nearly two-decade-long case. These communications were uncovered during a deeper investigation into Brueckner's digital footprint, prompted by his established history of criminal behavior, including rape, burglary, and child abuse. Additionally, authorities identified a second Hotmail account used by Brueckner to share child sexual abuse material. Notably, emails in this second account were deleted in early 2007, coinciding with the timeline of Madeleine's disappearance from a Praia da Luz resort in Portugal on May 3, 2007. This temporal alignment raised suspicions that Brueckner may have deliberately erased communications to cover his tracks around the time of the crime. The discovery of these accounts added weight to existing evidence, such as phone records placing Brueckner near the Ocean Club that night and witness statements, like Helge Busching's claim that Brueckner said Madeleine didn't scream. The Hotmail accounts offered a glimpse into Brueckner's activities and mindset, suggesting a calculated effort to hide incriminating material. However, the exact content of the messages remains closely guarded, as investigators continue to analyze their relevance to Madeleine's case. The accounts were accessed through advanced forensic techniques, likely involving cooperation with international tech experts, highlighting the complexity of tracing digital evidence across jurisdictions. Despite the significance of the Hotmail findings, substantial limitations prevent them from being conclusive enough to charge Brueckner in Madeleine's case. Lead prosecutor Titus Stampa stated that legal restrictions prohibit him from disclosing specific details of the messages, citing confidentiality and ongoing investigative needs. This lack of transparency has frustrated efforts to build a compelling case, as the public and Madeleine's family, Kate and Jerry McCann, remain unaware of the messages' precise content or context. Without clear evidence directly linking the communications to Madeleine, such as explicit references to her disappearance or murder, the messages remain circumstantial. The deletion of emails in early 2007 further complicates matters, as recovered data may be incomplete or corrupted, limiting forensic analysis. Additionally, the account's connection to child abuse material, while damning to Brueckner's character, does not inherently prove involvement in Madeleine's case. The absence of corroborating physical evidence, like DNA or items tied to Madeleine, weakens the case's foundation. Jurisdictional challenges also persist, as German, Portuguese, and British authorities struggle to align their efforts with evidence, sharing delays hindering progress. As Brueckner nears his prison release, The inability to fully leverage the Hotmail evidence underscores the ongoing challenge of securing a conviction in one of Europe's most high-profile mysteries. In 2008, during a music festival in Spain, Helge Busching, a former acquaintance of Christian Brueckner. While intoxicated, Brueckner allegedly remarked that Madeleine didn't scream, suggesting intimate knowledge of her fate. This statement, made a year after Madeleine vanished from a Praia da Luz resort in Portugal, raised alarms when Busching reported it to authorities a decade later, in 2017. The comment implied Brueckner was either directly involved or aware of specific details about the incident, as the absence of screams aligned with the quiet nature of the disappearance. No witnesses reported hearing distress from the McCann's apartment. Busching's account became a cornerstone of the case against Brueckner, complementing other evidence like phone records, placing him near the Ocean Club on May 3, 2007. However, Busching's delay in reporting, nearly 10 years, raised questions about his motives and memory accuracy. As a former prisoner with a criminal background, his credibility was scrutinized, especially since he only came forward after Brueckner's other crimes surfaced. Despite its potential significance, this testimony alone lacks corroboration, such as physical evidence or additional witnesses to the conversation, making it a provocative but incomplete piece of the puzzle in linking Brueckner to Madeleine's disappearance. In the week leading up to Madeleine's disappearance, Ken Ralphs, another witness, encountered Brueckner near Praia da Luz alongside an unidentified man who appeared distraught. According to Ralphs, this man was crying and confessed to assisting a friend in kidnapping a child to raise money for relocating his family abroad. Ralphs believed this conversation, which occurred in late April 2007, was connected to Madeleine's case, given its proximity to the crime and Brueckner's presence. He reported the incident multiple times to authorities, including Portuguese and British police, but claimed his tips were never seriously pursued. The lack of follow-up may stem from the initial focus on Madeleine's parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, as suspects, which dominated early investigations. Ralph's account suggests Brueckner may have had accomplices or planned the abduction in advance, aligning with his history of organized criminal behavior, including burglaries and sexual assaults. However, the vagueness of the accomplice's identity and the absence of corroborating evidence, such as records of the alleged accomplice or physical traces of a planned kidnapping, limit the testimony's impact. Ralph's persistence in reporting underscores his conviction, but the failure to act on his tips highlights investigative oversights that plagued the case, particularly in its early stages when leads were abundant but poorly coordinated across jurisdictions. An ex-girlfriend of Brueckner provided further insight into his character, describing him as harboring a deep hatred for children, particularly British children, and exhibiting violent tendencies. She also revealed his addiction to disturbing pornographic content, which aligns with the 8,000 images and videos of child abuse found in a 2016 search of his property. This testimony paints Brueckner as a volatile and predatory individual, capable of targeting vulnerable victims like Madeleine, a British child on vacation. The ex-girlfriend's account, likely from the period Brueckner lived in the Algarve 1995 to 2007, adds context to his psychological profile, suggesting a motive rooted in personal animosities or deviant impulses. However, her statements lack specificity tying Brueckner directly to Madeleine's disappearance, focusing instead on his general behavior. The absence of details about specific incidents involving Madeleine or the night of May 3, 2007, limits the testimony's legal weight, though it reinforces suspicions about Brueckner's capacity for such a crime. Her credibility, as someone close to Brueckner, is compelling but requires corroboration to elevate it beyond circumstantial evidence. The reliability of these testimonies was significantly undermined in 2024 when a Braunschweig court, handling unrelated sexual assault charges against Brueckner, deemed Busching and other witnesses not credible. This ruling stemmed from inconsistencies in their statements and potential ulterior motives, such as seeking leniency in their own legal troubles. Butching's criminal history and delayed reporting further eroded trust in his account, while Ralph's testimony suffered from the lack of follow-up and the unidentified accomplice's absence from records. The ex-girlfriend's statements, though consistent with Brueckner's documented behavior, were too general to directly implicate him in Madeleine's case. These credibility issues, combined with the absence of forensic evidence like DNA or a confession, weaken the testimony's ability to support charges. As Brueckner nears his prison release on September 17, 2025, for a 2005 rape conviction, the reliance on potentially unreliable witnesses underscores the challenges facing prosecutors, who must build a case amidst jurisdictional disputes and fading evidence. On May 3, 2007, at 7:32 p.m., Christian Brueckner received a 30-minute call from a prepaid phone number while near the Ocean Club in Praia da Luz, Portugal. This call, occurring just 90 minutes before Madeleine was reported missing at around 10 p.m., is a critical piece of evidence in the investigation. The timing and location of the call raised suspicions about Brueckner's activities that night, suggesting he may have been coordinating or discussing plans related to the crime. The use of a prepaid phone, which is often untraceable, indicates an attempt to avoid detection, consistent with Brueckner's history of using aliases and evading authorities. Despite its significance, the identity of the caller remains undisclosed, and it is unclear whether police have obtained detailed records from the phone carrier to trace the number further. This lack of transparency frustrates efforts to connect the call directly to Madeleine's disappearance, as no public information confirms its content or purpose. The call's duration and proximity to the crime scene make it a focal point, but without additional context, it remains a tantalizing yet inconclusive clue in the case. Phone records confirm that Brueckner was in close proximity to the Ocean Club on the evening of May 3, 2007, strengthening suspicions about his involvement in Madeleine's disappearance. Data from cell towers pinpointed his phone's location near the resort, aligning with the timeline of the incident and corroborating other evidence, such as witness statements and Brueckner's known presence in the Algarve from 1995 to 2007. This location data, uncovered during Operation Grange's review, was a breakthrough in 2020 when German authorities named Brueckner as the main suspect. However, the lack of precise GPS coordinates or additional forensic evidence, like DNA from the McCann's apartment, limits its ability to conclusively tie him to the crime. Coordination issues among German, Portuguese, and British police have also hindered efforts to fully exploit this data, as records were not systematically shared. With Brueckner's prison release looming on September 17, 2025, the phone evidence underscores the urgency to uncover further details to build a stronger case. Christian Brueckner owned a Jaguar car that was reportedly seen near the Ocean Club in Praia da Luz, Portugal, on the night of May 3, 2007, when Madeleine vanished. This sighting is significant, as it places Brueckner in close proximity to the crime scene during the critical timeframe of the incident. Adding to the suspicion, Brueckner transferred ownership of the Jaguar just days after Madeleine's disappearance, a move that investigators view as highly unusual and suggestive of an attempt to distance himself from potential evidence. This rapid transfer raises questions about whether Brueckner was trying to cover his tracks, possibly fearing that the vehicle contained incriminating traces such as DNA fibers or other forensic evidence. However, no public information confirms whether the Jaguar was ever tested for DNA, blood, or hair that could link it to Madeleine. The lack of forensic examination, or at least the absence of reported results, represents a significant gap in the investigation. Given Brueckner's history of calculated behavior, such as using aliases and hiding evidence, the transfer of the Jaguar's ownership remains a compelling but unverified clue, leaving investigators and the public without definitive answers about its role in the case. Brueckner was also known to live in a beige VW van, frequently spotted near children's playgrounds and beaches in the Algarve region, including areas close to Praia da Luz. Local residents reported seeing the van parked for extended periods, with some accounts suggesting Brueckner used it to observe children, aligning with his documented predatory behavior. The van's presence near family-oriented locations in 2007, combined with Brueckner's criminal record of burglary and child abuse, heightened suspicions about its potential use in Madeleine's disappearance. Despite its relevance, there is no public record indicating that the VW van was thoroughly tested for forensic evidence, such as blood, hair, or other traces that could connect it to Madeleine. This oversight, possibly due to early investigative focus on other suspects like the McCanns, has been criticized as a missed opportunity. The van's transient nature, serving as Brueckner's mobile base, made it a potential repository for evidence, yet the lack of comprehensive testing leaves its significance unresolved. The unexamined vehicles underscore persistent challenges in linking him directly to Madeleine's case, despite their circumstantial weight. In 2025, wrote a provocative letter from prison, mocking investigators and asserting their lack of evidence in the case. Serving a 7-year sentence for a 2005 rape in Praia da Luz, Brueckner claimed police had no concrete proof or body to link him to Madeleine's fate, predicting the investigation would shock the world. With its failure, the letter, penned as his September 17, 2025, release date neared, reflects a manipulative mindset, consistent with his history of evading accountability through aliases and concealed evidence. Brueckner's taunting tone suggests confidence in avoiding charges, leveraging the absence of forensic evidence like DNA or Madeleine's remains. While the letter strengthens suspicions about his psychological profile, marked by control and defiance, it lacks direct admissions of guilt, rendering it circumstantial. It aligns with prior behaviors, such as his 2008 comment to Helge Busching that Madeleine didn't scream, but offers no concrete link to the crime. The letter's public disclosure has fueled frustration among the McCann family and investigators, who face mounting pressure to secure evidence before Brueckner's release. Its manipulative nature underscores the challenge of prosecuting a suspect who exploits the case's evidential gaps, leaving the investigation reliant on other leads, like phone records or the 2016 factory search, to build a case before time runs out. In June 2025, a former employee of Germany's Federal Criminal Police Office, BK, paid a €1446 fine on behalf of Christian Brueckner, securing his early release from prison on September 17, 2025, instead of January 2026. Brueckner, serving a 7-year sentence for a 2005 rape in Praia da Luz, Portugal, faced an additional 56 days of imprisonment due to unpaid fines related to public drunkenness, document forgery, and bodily harm from a 2015 conviction. The former BKA technician, previously involved in wiretapping Brueckner's cell, claimed the payment was a misunderstanding, believing the fine was solely for insulting a prison officer, an offense she deemed unjustified. She told Der Spiegel she attempted to reverse the payment upon learning it covered more serious charges, but her efforts failed. This incident sparked outrage, as the payment was seen as undermining the ongoing investigation into Madeleine's case. The woman's prior role in surveilling Brueckner raised questions about her motives, with some speculating negligence or sympathy, though she denied ever meeting him. The payment, confirmed by Braunschweig prosecutors, eliminated the chance to extend Brueckner's detention, intensifying pressure on German, Portuguese, and British authorities to find evidence before his release. The early payment of Brueckner's fine shortened the investigation timeline by over 3 months, a critical loss for authorities racing to link him to Madeleine's disappearance. This development caused widespread anger among investigators, the McCann family, and the public, as it reduced the window to uncover forensic evidence, such as DNA or items tying Brueckner to the crime. The June 2025 Atalaya search, conducted days before the payment, yielded 2 non-lethal guns, animal bones, and clothing, but no direct link to Madeleine, highlighting the urgency of additional time. German prosecutor Hans Christian Wolters noted the lack of sufficient evidence to charge Brueckner, and the shortened timeline jeopardized fears he could flee to a non-extradition country upon release. Public and political backlash ensued, with calls for an inquiry into how a former BKA employee could access and settle Brueckner's fine, especially given her surveillance role. Posts on X reflected public fury, labeling the incident a catastrophic failure and fueling cover-up theories. The payment not only disrupted investigative efforts, but also deepened distrust in the handling of one of Europe's most high-profile cases, leaving the McCann's hope for justice hanging by a thread as Brueckner's release loomed. Christian Brueckner is set to be released from prison on September 17, 2025, after serving a 7-year sentence for the 2005 rape of a 72-year-old woman in Praia da Luz, Portugal. German prosecutors, led by Hans-Christian Wolters, fear that upon release, Brueckner may flee to a country without an extradition treaty, rendering prosecution for Madeleine's case nearly impossible. This concern stems from Brueckner's history of evading authorities, using aliases, and moving across Europe, particularly during his time in the Algarve from 1995 to 2007. The absence of definitive forensic evidence, such as DNA or Madeleine's remains, heightens the urgency to secure a charge before his release. The 2025 Italia search and earlier findings, like the 2016 factory cache, have not provided conclusive links to Madeleine, leaving prosecutors with limited grounds to detain him further. The looming release date has intensified pressure on German, Portuguese, and British authorities, with public and McCann family demands for action growing louder. Brueckner's potential flight could permanently stall the investigation, leaving one of Europe's most high-profile cases unresolved after 18 years. Brueckner's lawyer, Friedrich F. Lascher, claims his client intends to settle on the German island of Sylt after release, suggesting a plan to remain in Germany. However, investigators are skeptical, citing Brueckner's pattern of deception and mobility. His history of living in a VW van, using false identities, and hiding evidence, like USB drives buried under a dead dog, fuels doubts about his stated intentions. Authorities suspect he may leave Germany to avoid scrutiny, especially given the lack of charges in the McCann case. The possibility of Brueckner relocating to a non-extradition country has sparked calls for preventive measures, such as extended detention via Germany's Untersuchungshaft, though this requires stronger evidence. The uncertainty surrounding his plans underscores the critical need for a breakthrough before September 2025. In January 2025, German prosecutor Hans-Christian Wolters publicly acknowledged a grim reality. There is little prospect of prosecuting Christian Brueckner, due to the absence of definitive forensic evidence. Despite extensive investigations, no DNA, body, or specific items directly linking Brueckner to Madeleine have been found. This gap is critical, as forensic evidence is essential for building a prosecutable case in a court of law. The lack of physical evidence, such as hair, blood, or clothing tied to Madeleine, has stymied efforts to charge him. Searches, including the 2016 factory raid and the June to 2025 Italia operation, uncovered incriminating items like child abuse material and suspicious objects, but none bore a direct connection to Madeleine. Wolters' admission underscores the challenge of relying on circumstantial evidence, such as Brueckner's phone records placing him near the Ocean Club on May 3, 2007, or witness statements like Helge Busching's claim that Brueckner said Madeleine didn't scream. Without forensic proof, prosecutors face an uphill battle, risking Brueckner's release without charges, which could allow him to flee to a non-extradition country, potentially derailing the case permanently. The investigation has been hampered by poor coordination among German, Portuguese, and British authorities, creating significant obstacles in the pursuit of justice. The collaboration between Germany's Federal Criminal Police, Portugal's Guarda Nacional Republicana, and the UK's Operation Grange has been marked by inconsistent communication and incomplete evidence sharing. For instance, video footage from homes near the Ocean Club, which could have captured suspicious activity on the night of Madeleine's disappearance, was not fully shared among the agencies. Similarly, items from Brueckner's properties, such as his Jaguar car and VW van, were not thoroughly tested for DNA, blood, or fibers, possibly due to jurisdictional disputes or differing investigative priorities. Early in the case, Portuguese police focused heavily on Madeleine's parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, which diverted resources from other leads, including Brueckner's activities. The lack of a centralized evidence database has further complicated efforts to cross-reference findings across countries. This fragmentation, evident in delayed or incomplete sharing of critical data, has weakened the investigation's momentum, leaving gaps that could have been addressed with better cooperation. Especially as the window to charge Brueckner narrows, the investigation suffered further due to the improper storage or loss of initial evidence collected in 2007, including blood, hair, and soil samples from the McCann's apartment and rental car. These items, potentially crucial for forensic analysis, were either mishandled or misplaced, preventing re-examination with modern technology. British cadaver dogs detected traces of blood and a body in the apartment and car, but DNA tests were inconclusive, partly due to degraded or contaminated samples. The failure to preserve evidence properly, combined with the lack of advanced forensic tools like luminol at the time, limited the ability to establish a clear link to Madeleine or Brueckner. As technology has advanced, the opportunity to retest these samples has been lost, compounding the investigation's challenges and leaving the McCann family and authorities without answers as Brueckner's release looms. With Christian Brueckner, authorities are in a desperate race to uncover decisive evidence. The June 2025 search in Atalaya, 30 miles from Praia da Luz, was a critical attempt to find forensic evidence like DNA or items tied to Madeleine. Conducted by German, Portuguese, and British police, the operation used ground-penetrating radar and heavy machinery to explore abandoned structures, wells, and ditches near a cottage Brueckner once occupied. Despite recovering 2 non-lethal guns, animal bones, and clothing, the search failed to yield direct evidence connecting Brueckner to Madeleine. This setback, reported by outlets like Correio da Manhã, has significantly dampened hopes as the release date approaches. The absence of a breakthrough, coupled with earlier findings like the 2016 factory cache or Hotmail account data, leaves investigators reliant on circumstantial evidence, such as phone records placing Brueckner near the Ocean Club on May 3, 2007. The McCann family and public supporters, vocal on platforms like X, have intensified calls for action, fearing the case may go cold if Brueckner is released without charges. German prosecutors, led by Hans Christian Wolters, are exploring the use of Untersuchungshaft as investigative detention to keep Brueckner in custody beyond September 2025, but this legal measure requires substantial evidence to justify prolonged detention. Without forensic proof, such as DNA, a body, or items directly linked to Madeleine, invoking Untersuchungshaft risks violating human rights laws, potentially leading to the case's dismissal. Brueckner's lawyer, Friedrich F. Lascher, has warned that unjustified detention could prompt legal action against the German state, further complicating the investigation. A misstep in applying Untersuchungshaft could not only free Brueckner, but also discredit the investigation, undermining public trust and the McCann's 18-year quest for justice. As the deadline looms, the pressure to find a smoking gun, whether through re-examining existing evidence or new witness testimonies, has never been higher, with the risk of Brueckner evading accountability growing daily. On May 25, 2007, a witness at the Ocean Club resort in Praia da Luz, Portugal, provided a statement to an interviewer that raised significant questions about the events surrounding Madeleine McCann's disappearance on May 3, 2007. The witness claimed to have seen Jerry McCann, Madeleine's father, carrying a heavy black sack or bag as he left the family's apartment between 1:45 and 1:50 a.m., roughly 2 hours after the time some theories suggest Madeleine may have died from an accidental fall inside the apartment. This testimony, if accurate, places Jerry in a suspicious position, as it occurred in the early morning hours after Madeleine was last seen alive around 10 p.m. The witness's account, however, was not included in official police reports, primarily because investigators did not specifically question the witness about the night prior to Madeleine's reported disappearance. The lack of follow-up on this observation is a notable oversight. Given the potential significance of the sighting, the testimony aligns with early suspicions about the McCanns, who were briefly considered suspects by Portuguese police before being cleared in 2008. The witnesses' claim, while compelling, lacks corroboration from other sources, such as additional eyewitnesses or physical evidence, and its late emergence, weeks after the incident, raises questions about its reliability. The absence of official documentation and the witness's failure to report this observation immediately to authorities further weaken its credibility, making it a contentious piece of evidence in an already complex case. Adding to the controversy, British cadaver dogs, deployed in July 2007 as part of the investigation, detected the scent of a deceased body in multiple locations associated with the McCanns. These highly trained dogs, known for their accuracy in locating human remains, marked several areas: behind the living room sofa in the McCann's apartment, in Kate and Jerry's bedroom, in bushes near the back patio, on Kate McCann's clothing, and on Madeleine's stuffed toy, Cuddle Cat. Additionally, the dogs alerted to the scent of a body in the Renault Scenic, a car rented by the McCanns 24 days after Madeleine's disappearance. These findings fueled speculation that Madeleine may have died in the apartment, supporting theories like that of former Portuguese investigator Gonçalo Amaral, who argued in his 2008 book, Maddie, The Truth of the Lie, that Madeleine died accidentally and her parents concealed the incident. The cadaver dog alerts were significant, as they suggested the presence of human remains or bodily fluids, but their evidential value was limited by the lack of corroborating forensic evidence. Small traces of blood were found in the apartment, but DNA tests were inconclusive, possibly due to contamination or degradation over time. The alerts on the rental car, used weeks later, further complicated the narrative, as it was unclear how Madeleine's remains could have been linked to a vehicle acquired after her disappearance. The cadaver dog evidence, while compelling, remains circumstantial without definitive DNA confirmation. The witness testimony about Jerry McCann and the cadaver dog findings have been central to one of the most controversial theories in the Madeleine McCann case: that Madeleine died in the apartment, possibly due to an accidental fall, and her parents covered it up. This theory, championed by Gonçalo Amaral, who led the initial Portuguese investigation, posits that the McCanns staged a kidnapping to conceal their daughter's death. Amaral's 2008 book detailed his belief that Madeleine died in apartment 5A, pointing to the cadaver dog alerts, the timing of the disappearance, and inconsistencies in the McCanns' cooperation with police. The witness's claim of seeing Jerry with a heavy black bag at 1:45 a.m. aligns with this hypothesis, suggesting he may have been disposing of evidence. However, several factors undermine this theory. First, the witness testimony was not formally recorded by police, as investigators failed to ask about the night prior to the reported disappearance, a critical oversight in the early investigation. Second, the lack of DNA evidence to confirm the cadaver dog alerts weakens their reliability in court. DNA testing in 2007 was inconclusive, and improper storage of initial evidence, such as blood, hair, or soil samples, prevented re-examination with modern forensic techniques. Third, the McCanns were officially cleared as suspects in 2008 by Portuguese authorities, who shifted focus to other leads, such as Christian Brueckner, the current prime suspect. The cadaver dog alerts, while suggestive, could have been triggered by non-human sources or contamination, especially in a rental car used by multiple parties. The McCanns vehemently denied Amaral's claims, suing him for defamation over his book. They initially won damages, but Portugal's Supreme Court overturned the ruling in 2016, citing Amaral's right to free speech. The case remains unresolved at the European Court of Human Rights, reflecting the ongoing legal and public contention surrounding this theory. The controversy surrounding the witness testimony and cadaver dog evidence is further complicated by the McCanns' public and legal efforts to maintain their innocence. Kate and Jerry have consistently asserted that Madeleine was abducted, supported by the open window and disturbed shutters in their apartment. Amaral's theory, backed by the witness's claim and dog alerts, has been criticized as speculative, lacking the forensic rigor needed to override the 2008 clearance. The focus on the McCanns early in the investigation diverted resources from other suspects, including Brueckner, whose phone records place him near the Ocean Club on May 3, 2007. The failure to test key items, like Brueckner's Jaguar or VW van, for DNA contrasts with the intense scrutiny of the McCann's rental car, highlighting investigative inconsistencies. Public opinion remains divided, with some viewing Amaral as a whistleblower exposing a cover-up, while others see his claims as unfairly targeting grieving parents. The witness testimony, though intriguing, and the cadaver dog alerts, though suggestive, lack the concrete evidence needed to substantiate Amaral's theory, leaving it as a polarizing narrative in a case already fraught with uncertainty. The unresolved questions surrounding these early leads underscore the challenges of solving Madeleine's disappearance after 18 years. Gonçalo Amaral, the former Portuguese inspector who led the initial investigation into Madeleine McCann's disappearance on May 3, 2007, has steadfastly maintained that Madeleine died in apartment 5A at the Ocean Club in Praia da Luz, Portugal, and that her parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, staged a kidnapping to cover up the incident. In his 2008 book, Maddie, The Truth of the Lie, Amaral argues that Madeleine's death was likely accidental, possibly due to a fall, and that her parents concealed the body to avoid responsibility. He points to several pieces of evidence to support his theory. First, he highlights the malfunctioning security cameras at the Ocean Club, which were inoperative on the night of the disappearance, either due to technical failure or tampering, eliminating crucial footage that could have clarified events. Second, he notes a delay between Kate McCann discovering Madeleine's absence around 10 p.m. and the first call to police, suggesting possible inconsistencies in the parents' account. Third, Amaral cites the McCanns' perceived lack of cooperation when they were briefly named suspects, arguidos, in 2007, including their refusal to answer certain police questions. He also references British cadaver dog alerts detecting the scent of a body in the apartment, on Kate's clothing, and in the McCann's rental car, though DNA tests were inconclusive. His insistence on this narrative has fueled public and media debate, with some viewing it as a bold challenge to an official narrative, while others see it as unfairly targeting grieving parents. The McCanns strongly contested Amaral's claims, filing a defamation lawsuit against him over Maddie. The Truth of the Lie, arguing that his accusations caused irreparable harm to their reputation and hindered the search for Madeleine. In 2015, a Portuguese court ruled in their favor, awarding them €500,000 in damages and temporarily banning the book. However, in 2016, Portugal's Supreme Court overturned the decision. Citing Amaral's right to free speech and his professional perspective as a former investigator, the court argued that Amaral's theory was based on his interpretation of evidence gathered during the investigation, not malicious intent. The McCanns appealed to the European Court of Human Rights, ECHR, where the case remains pending as of June 2025. The legal battle has been emotionally and financially draining for the McCanns, who maintain that Madeleine was abducted and that Amaral's claims lack credible evidence. The lawsuit has also polarized public opinion, with some supporting the McCanns' quest for justice, while others, particularly in Portugal, view Amaral as exposing investigative flaws. The ECHR's forthcoming decision could set a precedent for balancing free speech against defamation in high-profile cases, but it has not quelled the ongoing controversy surrounding Amaral's assertions. As of 2025, Gonçalo Amaral remains vocal in rejecting the theory that Christian Brueckner, the current prime suspect, is responsible for Madeleine's disappearance. He argues that the focus on Brueckner, who emerged as a suspect in 2020, serves to mask initial investigative errors, particularly the failure to thoroughly explore the McCanns' involvement. Amaral emphasizes the lack of forensic evidence, such as DNA, a body, or items directly linking Brueckner to Madeleine, despite extensive searches, including the 2016 factory raid and the June 2025 Atalaya operation. He contends that the cadaver dog alerts and early evidence, like blood traces in the apartment, point to an incident within the McCann's residence, not an external abduction by Brueckner. Amaral's skepticism about Brueckner aligns with his broader critique of the investigation's trajectory, which he believes was derailed by political pressure and international media scrutiny. His stance has drawn criticism for ignoring evidence like Brueckner's phone records, placing him near the Ocean Club on May 3, 2007, and witness statements suggesting his involvement. Nonetheless, Amaral's persistence highlights ongoing tensions in the case, as the absence of conclusive forensic proof against Brueckner, combined with his looming release on September 17, 2025, fuels doubts about resolving the 18-year mystery. Amaral's theory, while controversial, continues to influence public discourse, underscoring the case's complexity and the enduring quest for truth. 3 days after Madeleine McCann's disappearance on May 3, 2007, Anna Stam, a Dutch shop assistant, reported a troubling encounter in Amsterdam. She claimed to have seen a young girl resembling Madeleine, accompanied by an adult couple in a shop. The girl reportedly said, "They took me from my mummy. Mummy's on holiday," a statement that alarmed Stam given the timing and the global publicity surrounding Madeleine's case. Stam described the girl as having features similar to Madeleine, who was 3 years old when she vanished from a Praia da Luz resort in Portugal. Dutch police created sketches of the couple based on Stam's description, but the lead was not pursued further, a decision later criticized as a missed opportunity. The lack of follow-up may stem from the early investigation's focus on Madeleine's parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, as suspects, which diverted resources from external leads. Stam's report, while compelling, lacks corroboration, such as CCTV footage or additional witnesses, and the girl's identity was never confirmed. The statement attributed to the child aligns with the abduction theory, but raises questions about why the lead was abandoned. This sighting, reported to authorities shortly after the incident, remains one of several tantalizing but unresolved clues in the case, highlighting the challenges of coordinating an international investigation amidst a flood of tips in the chaotic early days. In 2023, a search was conducted at the Arade Reservoir, 31 miles from Praia da Luz, prompted by a 2013 anonymous letter containing GPS coordinates, pinpointing the area as significant to Madeleine's case. The reservoir was notable because Christian Brueckner, the prime suspect, was known to have camped there in 2007. The operation, involving German, Portuguese, and British police, used divers, sonar, and excavation equipment to scour the site. Items recovered included animal bones, fabric scraps, and adult clothing, but forensic analysis found no DNA or evidence linked to Madeleine. Photos found on Brueckner's devices, uncovered during a 2016 factory search, confirmed he visited the reservoir days after Madeleine's disappearance, strengthening suspicions about his activities. The anonymous tip, combined with Brueckner's presence, suggested the reservoir could have been a disposal site, but the lack of concrete evidence, such as Madeleine's DNA or personal items, left the search inconclusive. The operation underscored the difficulty of finding viable evidence 16 years after the incident, as environmental factors like water and soil degradation likely erased traces. The Arade search, while high-profile, mirrored the 2025 Atalaya operation's failure to yield direct links, reflecting the ongoing challenge of building a case against Brueckner, prison release. Local reports from 2007 provide additional context to Brueckner's suspicious behavior around Praia da Luz. A fisherman at the Arade Reservoir reported hearing a boat engine on the night of May 3, 2007, an unusual occurrence given the area's isolation and the late hour. This observation, though not immediately acted upon, gained relevance after the 2023 search confirmed Brueckner's presence at the reservoir. Separately, a Praia da Luz resident reported seeing Brueckner sitting in his beige VW van near a children's playground in the weeks leading up to Madeleine's disappearance. The resident noted Brueckner's prolonged presence, which seemed out of place in a family-oriented area, but police did not investigate at the time, likely due to the early focus on the McCanns. These accounts align with Brueckner's documented predatory behavior and his history of targeting areas frequented by children. However, the lack of immediate action in 2007 represents a missed opportunity to scrutinize Brueckner, who was not named a suspect until 2020. The fisherman's report and the resident's sighting, while circumstantial, add to the pattern of Brueckner's suspicious activities, supported by phone records, placing him near the Ocean Club on the night of the disappearance. The failure to act on these observations, combined with mishandled evidence like untested vehicles, underscores investigative shortcomings that continue to hinder the case as the McCanns and authorities seek answers. The Madeleine McCann case, spanning over 18 years since her disappearance on May 3, 2007, from a resort in Praia da Luz, Portugal, offers profound lessons about resilience, the complexities of justice, and the enduring hope of a family in the face of uncertainty. As Christian Brueckner, the prime suspect, nears his prison release in September 2025, the case underscores critical reminders about the importance of perseverance, investigative diligence, and the human cost of unresolved mysteries. These lessons resonate not only for those directly involved, but also for society, urging us to reflect on how we approach justice, support victims, and learn from systemic failures. Current situation: Christian Brueckner remains the primary suspect in Madeleine McCann's disappearance, supported by a web of circumstantial evidence. Phone records place him near the Ocean Club resort on the night of May 3, 2007, with a 30-minute call from a prepaid number at 7:32 p.m., just 90 minutes before Madeleine was reported missing. A 2016 search of an abandoned factory he rented uncovered 8,000 images and videos of child abuse, alongside a chilling story titled Mad Anale, eerily similar to Madeleine's case. Witness testimonies, such as Helge Busching's 2008, claim that Brueckner said Madeleine didn't scream, and items like children's swimsuits, ropes, and possible sedatives found in his possession paint a predatory profile. The June 2025 Atalaya search near a cottage Brueckner occupied yielded non-lethal guns, animal bones, and clothing, but forensic analysis in Lisbon found no direct link to Madeleine. Despite this compelling evidence, the absence of forensic proof, DNA, a body, or Madeleine's personal items, prevents charges, as German prosecutor Hans Christian Wolters admitted in January 2025. The case highlights the critical balance between circumstantial and forensic evidence in criminal investigations. Circumstantial evidence, while powerful in building a narrative, often falls short in court without concrete forensic links. The failure to find Madeleine's DNA or remains after 18 years underscores the need for rigorous evidence collection and preservation from the outset. Early mishandling of blood, hair, and soil samples in 2007, combined with untested items like Brueckner's Jaguar and VW van, illustrates how initial oversights can haunt long-term investigations. This serves as a reminder for law enforcement to prioritize forensic protocols, invest in advanced technologies, and ensure meticulous evidence management. For society, it emphasizes the importance of supporting scientific advancements in forensics to close gaps in cases that rely heavily on circumstantial clues, ensuring justice isn't thwarted by the passage of time. Brueckner's scheduled release on September 17, 2025, after a 7-year sentence for a 2005 rape in Praia da Luz, intensifies the urgency to secure a breakthrough. The June 2025 Atalaya search's failure to produce direct evidence, mirroring the inconclusive 2020 Thera raid reservoir search, has dimmed hopes. German, Portuguese, and British authorities continue their efforts, but lack of coordination remains a significant hurdle. For example, video footage from homes near the Ocean Club was not fully shared, and Brueckner's vehicles were not thoroughly tested for traces. The controversial payment of a €1446 fine by a former German police employee in June 2025, which shortened Brueckner's sentence, further compressed the investigative timeline. Without a breakthrough, the case risks becoming an eternal mystery, with fears that Brueckner could flee to a non-extradition country. The Madeleine McCann case exposes the high cost of poor international coordination in complex investigations. The lack of synchronized efforts among agencies highlights the need for unified protocols, real-time data sharing, and clear communication channels in cross-border cases. The looming deadline of Brueckner's release serves as a stark reminder that time is a critical factor in justice. Investigative delays, as seen with untested vehicles, or ignored leads like Anna Stam's 2007 sighting in Amsterdam, can allow suspects to evade accountability. This lesson urges law enforcement to establish robust international task forces and prioritize early action on all leads, no matter how minor. For the public, it's a call to advocate for systemic reforms that streamline global cooperation, ensuring that bureaucratic obstacles don't derail the pursuit of truth. The case also teaches resilience in the face of setbacks, as every missed opportunity underscores the need to keep pushing forward despite diminishing prospects. Kate and Jerry McCann have never wavered in their quest for answers, despite 18 years of anguish and public scrutiny. They continue to call for Brueckner's prosecution, urging authorities to exhaust all leads before his release. The McCanns are also considering escalating the case to the European Court of Human Rights, ECHR, particularly in their ongoing defamation battle against former Portuguese investigator Gonçalo Amaral, whose claims they covered up Madeleine's death remain contentious. Their poignant statement, "Whether justice comes tomorrow or never, we will always be Madeleine's parents," reflects their enduring commitment. The Find Madeleine Fund, supported by public donations, sustains private investigations and awareness campaigns, keeping the case alive globally. The McCann's resilience offers a powerful lesson in hope and perseverance. Their refusal to give up, despite inconclusive investigations and personal attacks, demonstrates the strength of familial love in the face of unimaginable loss. It reminds us that victims' families often bear the emotional and financial burden of keeping cases alive, underscoring the importance of public and institutional support. The McCann's advocacy, amplified by media and platforms like X, shows how public pressure can sustain investigations, pushing authorities to act even when evidence is scarce. This lesson calls on society to rally behind families of missing persons, offering emotional, financial, and vocal support to ensure their voices are heard. It also highlights the role of legal avenues like the ECHR in seeking justice when national systems falter, encouraging families to explore all options. The McCann's unwavering hope teaches us that persistence, even against overwhelming odds, can inspire change and maintain focus on unresolved cases, reminding us to never abandon those who seek closure. The Madeleine McCann case serves as a sobering reminder of the fragility of justice and the enduring impact of unresolved mysteries. It teaches us to value forensic diligence, demand better coordination in global investigations, and support families who carry the weight of loss. As Brueckner's release looms, the case urges us to reflect on how we can improve systems to prevent other cases from lingering in limbo. The McCann's fight for Madeleine is a call to action, to advocate for missing children, push for investigative reforms, and hold fast to hope, ensuring that no child's story fades into silence.